Good day, everyone. I am Elaine Gail Morao, a second-year student of Bachelor of Physical Education. Today, I'm going to discuss about the World Flying Disc Federation rules of Ultimate 2021 and 2024. So, um, before the 20 rules of WFDF, I'm going to talk about the Ultimate. So, Ultimate is a seven-a-side team sport played with a flying disc. It is played on a rectangular field about half the width of a football field, with an end zone at each end. The objective of each team is to score a goal by having a player catch a pass in the end zone that they are attacking. A thrower may not run with the disc but may pass the disc in any direction to any teammate. Anytime a pass is incomplete, a turnover occurs, and the other team shall take possession and attempt to score in the opposite end zone. Games are typically played to 15 goals or around 100 minutes. Ultimate is self-officiated and non-contact. The spirit of the game guides how players officiate the game and conduct themselves on the field. Many of these rules are general in nature and cover most situations. However, some rules cover specific situations and override the general case. Variations to the basic structure and rules may be used to accommodate special competitions, numbers of players, age of players, or available space. Refer to the relevant appendix for additional rules that apply at specific types of World Flying Disc Federation or WFDF events. So the first rule is the spirit of the game. So Ultimate is a non-contact, self-officiated sport. So all players are responsible for administering and adhering to the rules. So this kind of game has no officials that will assist them on playing the game. So Ultimate relies upon a spirit of the game that places the responsibility for fair play on every player. So it so there will be no officials. So the spirit of the game, merong responsibility yung mga players na sila mismo ang dapat sumunod sila sa mga rules na sa game na 'to na hindi na kailangan ng guide ng officials. The next is it is trusted that no player will intentionally break the rules. So, yun na nga. So, yung mga players, sila ang may responsibility na may fair play sa game at saka sa kapwa nilang players. Thus, there are no harsh penalties for inadvertent breaches, but rather a method for resuming play in a manner which stimulates that would most likely have occurred had there been no breach. If there is a deliberate or egregious breach of the rules of spirit of the game, the captains should discuss this and determine an appropriate outcome, even if that outcome is not in accordance with the specific rule. Next rule is the playing field. So the playing field is a rectangular area with dimensions and zones as shown on figure 1 and should be essentially flat, free of obstructions, and afford reasonable player safety. The perimeter lines surround the playing field and consist of two sidelines along the length and two end lines along the width. So um, this is the playing field of Ultimate. Next is the equipment. Any flying disc acceptable to both captains may be used. WFDF may maintain a list of approved discs recommended for use. Each player must wear a uniform that distinguishes their team. So the color of their uniform should be different from one each other, because if parehas silang uniform, for example, green sa team A and green dun sa team B, so it will be hard for them to identify their teammates. Next is no player may wear items of clothing or equipment that reasonably could harm or wear or other players or impede an opponent's ability to play. For example, are um, watch and jewelries because um, sometimes it may cause injury kung natatamaan kung matamaan yung mga matamaan ng mga clothing or equipment kung kung sakaling magka-cause ng injury if yung mga clothing equipment nila matama sa katawan nila. Next is the point, goal, and game. A game consists of a number of points. Each points end with the scoring of a goal. So, magkaka-points ang game na to if this is goal. A game is finished and won by the first team to score 15 goals. So, kung sino unang makascore ng 15, yun ang team na mananalo. A game is separated into two periods of play called halves. Halftime occurs when a team first score 8 goals. The first point of each half starts when the half starts. Next rule is the teams. Each team will put a maximum of 7 players and a minimum of 5 players on the field during each point. Each team must designate a captain and a spirit captain to represent the team. A team may make unlimited substitutions after a goal is scored and before their team signals readiness for the pool. Next is starting a game. Our representatives of the two teams fairly determine which team first chooses either whether to receive or throw the initial pool or which end zone they will initially defend. So, it is kung manalo ka sa something manalo ka sa if sinong mauuna, so may advantage sila na makapasto ng maayos on the game. The other team is given the remaining choices. So, yung natalo sa starting a game, syempre, pipiliin nila yung hindi napili ng nanalo. At the start of the second half, these initial selections are switched. So next is the pool. At the start of the game, after halftime or after a score, play commences with a throw by the defense called a pool. Teams must prepare for the pool without unreasonable delay. The pool may be made only after both teams have signaled their readiness by having the pooler and the player on offense raise a hand above their heads. So hindi pwedeng mag-play agad kung wala pang mga signal. The next is the state of play. Play is dead and no turnover is possible after the start of a point until the pool is released. When the disc must be carried to the pivot location after the pool or a turnover until a pivot point is established. Next is a stall count. The marker administers a stall count on the thrower by announcing stalling and then counting from 1 to 10. The interval between the start of each number in a stall must be at least 1 second. So, bibilangan siya ng 10 second. Next is the stall count must be clearly communicated to the thrower. Next is the check. Whenever play stops during a point for a foul violation, contested turnover, specified turnover, contested goal, stoppage, discussion, or at the completion of a timeout, play must start in as quick as possible with a check. The check may only be delayed for the discussion of a call. Player positioning after a call, except in the case of a timeout and unless specified otherwise. If play stops before a pass is thrown, all players must return to the location they held when the call was made. Next is the out of bounds. The entire playing field is in bounds. The perimeter lines are not part of the playing field and are out of bounds. All non-players are part of the out of bounds area. The out-of-bounds area consists of the ground, which is not in bounds, and everything in contact with it, except for defensive players who are always considered in bounds, receivers, and positioning. A catch occurs when a player has a non-spinning disc trapped between at least two body parts. A catch can enable a player to establish possession of the disc. If the player fails to maintain the catch due to subsequent ground contact related to the catch or contact related to the catch with a teammate or a legitimately positioned opposite player, possession is deemed to have not occurred. Next is turnovers. A turnover that transfers possession of the disc from one team to the other occurs when, first, the disc contacts the ground while it is not in the possession of an offensive player. Um, kung nahulog ang disc, so yung other naman ang hahawak, may chance ang other team na turn na nila na makuha ang disc. However, it is not down if a receiver catches a pass before the disc contacts the ground and maintains the catch while the disc is contact with the ground. Next is scoring. A goal is scored if an inbounds player catches a legal pass end. So, this game is parang um, the same din sa soccer because parang may goal din na pero pasahan lang ng disc. If a goal is scored if inbounds player catches a legal pass and all their ground contacts are entirely within their attacking end zone, or for an airborne player, all of their first simultaneously points of ground contact after catching the disc are entirely within their attacking end zone. Next is calling fouls, infractions, and violations. A breach of the rules due to the non-minor contact between two or more opposing players is a foul. A player intentionally initiating minor contact is a still breach of the rules, but it is to be treated as a violation and not a foul. So parehas din ito na parehas ang larong ito ay parehas din sa basketball na merong mga fouls kapag merong may mga minor contacts. The next is continuation after a call. Whenever a foul or violation call is made or a player attempts to stop play in any way, play stops immediately and no turnover is possible unless in situations specified in 15.9, 16.2, and 16.3. Next is fouls, then dangerous play. Actions demonstrating reckless disregard for the safety of fellow players or posing significant risk of injury to fellow players or other dangerously aggressive behaviors are considered dangerous play and must be treated as foul regardless of whether or when contact occurs. So, same din with other sports na pag meron din itong fouls. Next is the infractions and violations. Marking infractions. Marking includes the following: fast count, the marker, starts or continues the stall count illegally, does not start or restart the stall count with stalling, count in less than 1 second intervals, does not correctly reduce or reset the stall count when required, or does not start the stall count from the correct number. Number 19, safety stoppages. Injury stoppage. An injury stoppage or injury may be called by the injured player or by any player on the injured player's team. If the injury not caused by an opponent, the player must choose either to be substituted or to charge their own team with a timeout. So, kung hindi naman siya foul or hindi naman siya injured ng kalaban niya or ng kanyang teammates, pwedeng i-substitute ito or magtawag ng timeout. Next is timeouts. The player calling a timeout must form a T like this with their hands or with one hand the disc and should call timeout. So, hawakan nila yung disc na ganito. Ibig sabihin, i-raise nilang ang disc and then, ibig sabihin timeout nun. So, and should call timeout two opposition players. So, either ganon or pag-raise ng this ang sign ng timeout. So, after the start of a point and before both teams have signaled readiness, a player from either team may call a timeout. The timeout extends the time between the start of the point and subsequent pool by 75 seconds. So that's the end of the that's the end of the the MFDF rules of Ultimate 2021-2024. Thank you for listening.